Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, changes at the Department of Corrections. Also, Lauderdale DA is going after a mother for taking a prescription. And big news in the governor's race.
They're back.
Or there's a zombie apocalypse. I'm not sure. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and today I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR, and Angie Horn, political consultant, Republican strategist. Welcome all.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
So this week we found out that Lindy Blanchard has switched from her U.S. Senate campaign to the governor's race. Tim James has thrown his hat in the ring for the governor's seat. This will be the third time. He says the third time is the charm. So it's scrambled the governor's race. Angie, how does this play out?
Well, as far as Blanchard goes, she seems like a perfectly nice lady, but I don't know if she's Linda or Lindy, if she's running for the Senate or the governorship. This was just a failure to launch on both campaigns. Tim James is someone that I like. I think he's a great guy. I just don't think running on yoga is what's going to motivate the base to go out and vote against Kay Iveys. She's extremely popular, and nothing against these two other candidates, but it's going to take a lot more than this to fully challenge Kay Iveys.
I mean, Susan, how do you challenge an incumbent governor, a popular incumbent in Alabama?
Well, you'd have to have some really strong policies that go against her policies that people can identify with. Basically the strongest thing that they've got is the lockdown. And I think most Alabamians realize that was absolutely necessary. I mean, there's a fringe that says that it wasn't, but these two, I like them both. They're both friends. I just don't see that they've got anything strong enough to defeat Kay Iveys with as far as the policies go.
I mean, Josh, looking at it from your perspective, you wouldn't vote for any of these candidates, but is there a lane that they can move further right than Kay Iveys? I mean, how do you do that?
Well, it's the crazy lane. They're taking that up quite well. It says a lot about the state of the Republican Party that they feel like to the right of Kay Iveys is where the opportunity is. I don't know what more you need to do. I mean, she did some stuff during the pandemic that was necessary and required. I didn't think she did enough. She certainly didn't do as much as Democratic governors. And so I don't understand the outrage there. I don't understand some of the other things that are being attacked. I mean, yoga, for God's sakes, yoga? Really? That's the attack here? Look, I'm with you. I don't understand how you go against a very popular governor in your own party with any sort of success. But I mean, maybe this is their way. I don't know. Maybe they're crazier than I even imagined.
I mean, Angie, people got a nice look at Governor Kay Iveys' sense of humor when she said she hadn't heard of Lindy Blanchard, and she didn't think many people had. I think some people took her way too seriously. That's kind of her biting sense of humor.
Right. And she said, I'll take my record and put it against their promises any day. It was great. It was great political theater. I think the Blanchard team really missed an opportunity there when they decided to tweet out this picture of she and the governor. It was clearly a grip and grin where a lot of people that no one knows are. You've got to take humor with humor. And I think that if there's going to be this offense taken at what was clearly political humor, this campaign's just off on the wrong foot.
I mean, she said if they didn't like her policies, Susan, maybe they should run for governor of New York or California. I mean, that was her campaign, but that's totally Governor Ivey.
That's Governor Ivey. She has a very biting sense of humor and kind of backhanded sense of humor, which anybody that knows her knows that's exactly what's going on. As Angie said, it's perfect political theater.
Are there any policy differences other than Tim James has said yoga, gambling, which Ivey hasn't had anything to do with gambling, and the taxes. He was against that, and he also on transgendered youth. Now, on all those, Kay Ivey has been pretty strong, except for the gas tax, which I'll remind folks that former President Trump, when he was president, wanted to raise gas by 25 cents a gallon fuel costs nationally. So what the Republicans in Alabama did was actually follow Trump, but did it for less.
By half, or more than half.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't think either of the candidates that announced this week really have anything that's strong and motivational to go after this governor. I also think it's interesting for Tim James to talk about infrastructure when he's known as the toll road, toll bridge guy, which failed much more and is much more unpopular than Trump's infrastructure plan that Alabama followed. I think what we have here are people who want to be governor. Everybody has a right to run. But they're really going to have some sort of strong policies, and I haven't seen that yet.
The Alabama class clown, Jim Ziegler, has said that Lindy Blanchard and Tim James entered the race, opens a lane for him, Susan. Which lane is that?
Talk about the crazy right of crazy lane. That would be Jim Ziegler's lane. I don't see, he's been researching whether he should run for governor, 6 months now?
Yeah, at least.
I mean, he's just really, Jim Ziegler is just full of air. That's really it.
Right. I mean, Josh, when you took a great picture of Jim Ziegler's tie one time. I mean, how do you see this playing out for Jim?
Look, I first of all, I don't think that Jim has any less of a chance than the other two. I just don't. I don't. Matter of fact, I would say that probably Blanchard would have the most to gain out of this. I mean, just because she has the money and I don't think that she's going to take up quite the same crazy lane that Jim Ziegler and Tim James are going to try to take up. I think that she might actually win some support from rational people, but I don't think it's going to be near enough to take on Kay Ivey. I mean, it's just all of these people are just, spending money. I mean, which God bless them, makes the world go round, I guess.
I mean, we have heard that Lindy Blanchard, that's her nickname. She's always gone by Lindy.
Because she's a twin. Her sister's name's Cindy,
right.
So they called them Cindy and Lindy.
Right. So she's willing to spend up to $10 million, though, Josh. That's a lot of cash.
Listen,
right?
There's a lot of things you can do with $10 million. I mean, I think you can put some billboards up for that. You can get you some digital advertising.
I think that's her biggest weakness. The fact that she keeps throwing around how much money she has and that she's willing to buy different offices. People in Alabama don't like that. And we have seen over and over and over millionaires throw around how much money they have and talk about how they're willing to buy offices, and it never works. Just go ask Jeff Allman, who ran for Congress.
Yeah, well, it worked for Michael Bloomberg, but we'll leave it right there. You're watching...
He's in New York, remember?
Well, maybe they could be governor of New York.
Yeah.
You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
My dog Jupiter is frightened when I climb too high, the owl said.
Check for monsters, Daddy.
I did, honey. There are no monsters. You're perfectly safe.
Protect yourself and those you love. Vaccinate now.
So you got caught speeding. But this time you got more than a ticket.
What are you in for?
Vehicular homicide.
Stop speeding before speeding stops you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to The Bee, the voice of Alabama politics. Josh, this week, Governor Kay Ivey announced that Jeff Dunn, the commissioner of the Alabama Department of Corrections, is leaving his post at the end of the year, and they're bringing in new blood to run the correction system. Good idea?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you could replace everybody who is in charge of the correction system, that would definitely be a good idea, because there is not a single aspect of the correction system that is operating the way it should be, or in what anyone would call a proper fashion. I don't know. I mean, you read that DOJ lawsuit, the amended one, or the one that they filed before, and just look at what they have done over the course of Jeff Dunn's tenure there, and it is atrocious. The history, the legacy that he leaves behind there. And you know, I know people that know Jeff Dunn and they think he's a really good guy. And maybe it's just a situation where there was somebody in over his head. I don't know him at all, but I know the results of the tenure there and what took place. And a lot of it, I'll give him this too. A lot of it goes back to our attitude towards prisons in this state, and from the people at the top of our state who should be paying attention to these things, not actually caring what goes on inside those walls. But you look at what happened during his tenure, and it's awful. It is just absolutely awful. And there is not a single thing you can point to as a point of pride or something that was accomplished during his tenure.
Susan, Chris England, Representative Chris England, who is also the head of the Democratic Party, said that he was a good man in a bad situation.
I would agree with that statement. We do know Jeff Dunn. I've toured prisons with Jeff Dunn. He is a really great guy, but he was really out of his depth in this position. I mean, he's an Air Force pilot that went into the correction system, which one is constitutionally illegal, and two, really showed that there's a reason in the Constitution for you to have correctional experience before you get into that job. He was just way in over his head.
I mean, Angie, one of the things, and this is a conservative standpoint, is that we believe in crime and punishment. But you get to the point where when the federal government's about to take you over, you got to do more than just build new prisons, I would think. Or is that all you can do?
Sure. I mean, look, Jeff Dunn is an incredibly nice guy. He devoted his life to a service of our country in the military. Those are wonderful things. But this was a man who never had any business being in corrections, and certainly being head of corrections in a state with a troubled system. He did not have the skill set, the background, or the experience to have that job. It was a bad hire from the beginning, and it shouldn't have been allowed to stay this long. But having someone with some sort of experience can at least help us figure out what we need to do to correct the ship. Because right now, you took a guy who had basically driven a bass boat and put him in front of a yacht and wondered why it became the Titanic. I mean, that's true. What's going on.
Yeah. Now, Governor Ivey's appointed John Hamm. He's got 35 years of experience, started out in local corrections and all that. Hopefully he can do more. I want to turn this over to another thing, and it does have to do with, law and order and things of that nature. We have a woman in Lauderdale County, Kim Blalock, who is scheduled to face trial this next week for taking oxycodone for chronic back pain while she was pregnant with her 6th child. The prescription was legal, but the Lauderdale District Attorney, Chris Connolly, is trying to charge her with a felony fraud of using that prescription. Senator Claude Chambliss is hopping mad over it. Angie, what's your take?
Absolutely should be hopping mad. This is a travesty. This is a patient who was given a prescription by her doctor, which she had filled at a legal pharmacy, which she took in accordance with the instructions of her doctor and her pharmacist. And now the DA is prosecuting her because she didn't second guess her doctor. This law was never intended for women taking legal prescriptions prescribed to them by their doctors. This was meant for women who were taking meth and heroin and all of those sort of street drugs. And Senator Chambliss is absolutely right. This is a travesty of justice, and someone should look into and run against that district attorney, because if he has nothing better to do than misappropriate laws to punish pregnant women for doing what their doctor said, surely there's somebody in Lauderdale County with a law degree who can fill that seat better than he can.
I got to put a little blame also on the legislature here, because once again, they didn't think it through. Once again, they wrote an open-ended law that now has, consequences, the unintended consequences. When they're writing these laws, they need to be more specific. Take more time. If you're going to restrict something, make sure the points are there that these things don't happen as a result of them being lazy.
No rational person ever believed that a DA would prosecute a woman for taking a prescription written by her doctor. No rational person. This isn't an unintended consequence. This is a DA with a serious, serious problem on his hands.
I don't know. I think that first of all, I cannot believe I'm going to say this, but I agree with Clyde Chambliss and Angie. I knew they would.
Hell just froze over.
I knew they'd be right eventually about something. But this is, I know Lauderdale County fairly well. I've been going there since I was a kid. We have a place on the river up there, and
limousine liberals.
I know the meth problems that they have, and the other drug problems that they have in Lauderdale County. The fact that you've got somebody running around chasing a poor pregnant lady who, by all accounts, is a good mother and no other problems. What the hell are you doing? Honest to God, what are you doing, man?
I don't disagree with y'all. I'm just saying, no, I agree. This is a rogue DA. He needs to go. But they should have closed the loop in a law that would allow him to do this.
Can't a judge in St. Clair County, in Lauderdale County, just go, this is dumb, I'm throwing this out? Really? Don't they have that ability?
Yes, they certainly have the ability to do that. But, I don't know exactly what. I don't know why we've gotten to this point. I just can't understand why we've gotten to this point with this. It's just so dumb.
Well,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
I would hate to say that the legislature and Montgomery ever does anything dumb, but Angie is absolutely right. This DA needs to be primaried. He needs to be out of office.
He needs to go.
This is actually just cruel and unusual punishment for a woman who did nothing but follow her doctor. But we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. More Mo Brooks coming up.
You'll never guess what 400,000 people in the U.S. were using when they crashed their cars last year. No, not this. This. Distracted driving will kill you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
My dog Jupiter is frightened when I climb too high, the owl said.
Check for monsters, Daddy.
I did, honey. There are no monsters. You're perfectly safe.
Protect yourself and those you love. Vaccinate now.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, Mo Brooks is the gift that keeps on giving to the press and the loony bin. at a Republican breakfast a week or so ago. He told the Republicans there that they needed to move on from the 2020 election. They needed to move forward from that. The same line that he got booed for when he was at the rally honoring former President Trump. He must not mind boos.
He must not mind boos, and apparently he's not listening to his voters, which he never does to begin with. He doesn't, actually represent people when he's in D.C., so that's not really surprising. But just to keep on with the line, just to keep cutting that wound that apparently his followers don't like is pretty suicidal.
I mean, most people that are over in Coleman County that are Republicans, I wouldn't think would take too kindly to it. One woman said that they can't move forward until they settle the 2020 election. But I want to get to another point here. Angie, when Brooks was in that meeting, he said that he was not a career politician.
So Mo Brooks has been on an elected ballot since before I entered kindergarten. Okay. If that's not a career, I don't know what is. But what's interesting is he also says this is not his full-time job, which, despite the $174,000 a year salary he has, explains why he gets nothing done. It's not doing it. He doesn't understand that this is a full-time job where he's supposed to be in the service of the people of Alabama. Look, Mo Brooks has hired a new campaign team. He understands that this is a sinking ship. Now he's trying to de-Trumpify himself and de-ellipse himself and become something he's not. He is a career politician. You can't change that. He is someone who has run on the integrity of the election process. Now he's saying, whoa, we don't want to do that anymore. Look, he has taken so many U-turns, I'm getting dizzy. But I've said the whole time, Mo Brooks says what he needs to say at that moment. Next week, you could be talking about that he went back to his original line of thinking. Who knows?
Well, you brought up a good point. The campaign manager that he hired has criticized Trump over the stolen election thing, and he is also was a never Trumper. So I don't know.
So I mean, here's the question. He's brought in this never Trump team, right? Who is from out of state, by the way.
Always.
So he's brought in this team to be this entire to do this entire new strategy, which is apparently take him back to 2016 Mo when he was a never Trumper. So I'm not sure if we're getting 2016 Mo, 2019 Mo, January 6th Mo, last week Mo. I don't know what we're going to get on the ballot, but maybe we need a paragraph to explain which Mo is running when election day gets here.
I think we're getting Confederate Longhorn Mo.
I think we're getting narcissists, say whatever you want, Mo.
I think we're getting face of the Alabama Republican Party, Mo Brooks. That's what we're getting. This is who he is. And this is perfect for Alabama Republicans. They don't know. They have really no ideas. They can't govern for anybody. They have no philosophies. They have nothing to run on. And so this is what they do. They come up with different ideas of ways to kind of get into races like this. And which Mo do I need to be today? Instead of just presenting policy ideas. How about that? How about some policy ideas? Anybody in
Well, here's the flaw, Josh.
Idea?
Here's the flaw in your logic, is that Mo Brooks has run for statewide race repeatedly and always lost. He's not the Republican pick. He's not winning
a congressman from Alabama right now. Right now.
From North Alabama. That's your territory, not mine. We've never voted for him.
Runner for the Senate. He is the front runner.
He's not. Polls have him in second, not first.
He's been first since the day he announced. And so we know that this is who he is. And we know this nonsense about the election that everybody knows, all the smart people really know is nonsense. We all know it's nonsense. Even Republicans know it's nonsense.
I have a very serious question for you. So who's the Democrat running for U.S. Senate or governor or any of these other things? You keep talking about these ideas. The Democrats don't have a single candidate.
Well, we're still qualifying candidates over here. That's how it works. You qualify, you go through the qualifying period, you see who'd like to run.
There's no one going through the qualifying period, and you know it.
Fair. Always said they are. They're going through the qualifying period.
All right. Well, let's. I want to move on here. I love you guys. Y'all are really good.
I would say, though, that one of my favorite things that Mo Brooks said is he is self-term limited.
Yeah, he's self-turned.
To 30. To 30.
Yeah, 35 years.
35 years and counting, right?
Yeah.
Angie and I, I like Katie Britt a lot. We're not relatives, but I think very highly of her, Wesley, and the family. She has really built a network of grassroots support around the state. Now, Mike DuRant is now the only other candidate in the race of any consequence. So it's Mike DuRant, Brooks, and Britt. So DuRant's going up with some advertising and stuff. Is there a way to win an election with just advertising and you don't have that grassroots support out there in the rural heartland of Alabama?
Well, look, DuRant's a multimillionaire. He can, he has said repeatedly he'll spend whatever kind of money he needs to. But here's DuRant's problem as it compares to Katie Britt. Katie Britt is in all the counties. She's received endorsements from all 67 counties. DuRant's not from here, right? He's from like New Hampshire, Connecticut, somewhere way up north. So he doesn't have a network here. He's a carpetbagger who's coming in and trying to win an Alabama Senate election, much like when Hillary Clinton left Arkansas to go to New York. He's just doing it backwards. So he's not from here. He's not going to be able to cultivate that grassroots. So the only way that he can win is to spend his millions of dollars. That's his only choice. Can it happen? Sure, it can work. But it's going to be very, very hard for someone who, is from New Hampshire to be elected to the Senate from Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Tuberville, you could say is not from Alabama, but he had such deep roots in Alabama, and people liked Tommy Tuberville.
And they knew who he was.
They knew who he was. He was a football coach here, and so he related fairly well to the grassroots thing. He did relate to those people very well because he'd been on the road in Alabama talking to a lot of those people, for years while he was the coach at Auburn. Because campaigning is a lot like being a football coach. You go to a lot of small town Rotary Club things, and you talk to a lot of people. So it's not really that different in terms of campaigning. Now, the job, as we all know, when he couldn't give you the three branches of government, is much different. But it's still the same thing. But yeah, Mike DuRant is got a problem. And the thing of it is he seems like a likable guy.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.